Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. If you're new around here, hello, welcome, my name is Charlotte. As by the title of this video, today's video is going to be my April wrap up / my OWLS wrap up. I completed my OWLS, I can move on to the newts. For the OWLS, I went for the Crate of Aura. I still don't have an explanation as why I went for Aura. I think my kind of only explanation was if I was in the Harry Potter world, I want to be like badass. I want to be an Aura. I think being an Aura would be quite fun. It's probably quite hard, but for that I had to read 5 books and I did it. I read all 5 and I'm very proud of myself. Just like any wrap up, I'm going to go through these books, tell you what I thought. Haven't done a wrap up in a couple of months because I didn't do a March one because I was just not feeling it. Just going to jump straight into my April wrap up. The first book that I read in the month of April was for Charms, which was to read a book with white on the cover. I kind of cheated. Some people say I'm cheated, some people probably don't care, but that is A Study in Charlotte by Brittany Cavallaro. I was going to buddy read this with Mafalda. I'll link her channel in the description below. We were going to buddy read this and I wanted to kind of somehow get this into my OWLS. There's white on the cover. It's not a white cover, but there's white on the cover. I ended up giving this a 4.25 out of 5 stars and had so much fun reading this. I was really excited to go into it because it's about the ancestors of Sherlock Holmes and John Watson, Charlotte Holmes and Jamie Watson, and about how they go to the same school together, and then there's a murder, they might be framed for the murder, and they have to kind of, you know, discover and work out, stop the person from framing them and find out who did it. I had so much fun reading this and I was really excited to go into it because I knew it was a YA contemporary retelling of Sherlock Holmes, and even though I haven't really watched or read much to do with Sherlock Holmes, I was still really excited because it's got that kind of murder mystery, detective, true crime element sort of thing with it, with a YA twist. So I was very excited to jump into it and I had a lot of fun. Both me and Mafalda really enjoyed this book and found the relationship between Jamie and Charlotte just adorable. I personally would be okay if they were just friends, but both me and Mafalda said that we wouldn't be mad, like we just wouldn't be mad if they ended up being a couple, but I found it really cute and really great. I knew that straight away that I love both these characters because they're such well-crafted characters. Jamie is such a sweetheart. I love him because we follow from his perspective, so we get to know more about him and get to know his perspective more, and he is just such a sweetheart and I love him. He cares a lot about Charlotte and it's just so sweet, and he's just such a great character, and I'm really excited to carry on with the series, to see how they both develop, to see how the relationship develops. The humour throughout the book also was incredible. I really enjoyed it, and it was just such a fun like addition, little bit in the book. The humour that kind of Charlotte brings out sometimes is actually great, and that's one part I absolutely loved. And even though it is like a YA mystery thriller, true crime, solving the murder sort of book, I was a bit worried that I wouldn't find the reveal shocking, or I'd guess the reveal, you know, find it not of a shocking reveal and work out what it is. I didn't, and even though I wasn't like, oh my god, I can't believe I didn't guess it, and oh my god, that was such a crazy reveal, it was still like I didn't guess it, but it wasn't like I was annoyed at myself. I don't really know how to explain it, but it wasn't bad that I just didn't guess it. I can't really describe, I can't really explain what I'm trying to say. Both me and Mafalda had a lot of fun reading this, and it's just such a fun book, like genuinely just such a fun little book. If you want a kind of retelling murder mystery YA book or series, this is just so great, with great characters, great humour, great writing. Absolutely loved it. The next book that I read in the month of April was for Defence Against the Dark Arts, and that was to read a book by the sea, or set by the sea or coast, and for that I read The Gentleman's Guide to Vice and Virtue by Mackenzie Lee. I gave this a 4 out of 5 stars. I really enjoyed it. Trigger warnings for alcohol abuse / consumption, racism, ableism, abuse / child abuse and PTSD. Just a few things that I thought I'd put out there because this does have a few kind of trigger warnings. This follows our main character Monty, and he's about to go on this kind of grand tour with his best friend who he's secretly in love with, and his sister. It's just about them going to have a bit of freedom and doing a few things as kind of aristocrats of their age or their era, before Monty has to come home and kind of really sort his life out and kind of become a gentleman. But then they kind of get caught up in something and it's a bit like, oh god, what's going to happen? I did have a lot of fun reading this book. I really enjoyed both the characters of Percy and Felicity, which is Monty's best friend and sister respectively. I thought they were just really great characters, and they really were good characters to oppose the perspective we were getting from Monty. Monty was a very flawed character, and sometimes I didn't like reading from him and sometimes I did. Sometimes he said stuff and did stuff that really bugged me, but at the same time I really enjoyed him and I really liked him as a character. I did say when I did my reading vlog for this that I found the plot not really there and the plot a bit weak, but I think the characters really kind of strengthen that and allow me to enjoy it more. But I did find, as I said, the plot a bit not the best. There is talks and discussion about race in this because Percy is mixed race. He has been brought up within a white family and he pretty much goes everywhere with Monty, and a lot of the time when they run into these things, when they run into some trouble or they're just talking, Percy always has to remind Monty that Percy knows he's lucky, but also he has to remind Monty that it's really hard for him wherever they go for people to assume that Percy is Monty's like manservant. That is one thing that really did, I think one of the aspects that annoyed me about Monty is that he doesn't remember his privileges. He's very ignorant to his privileges, even though he is bisexual, and that obviously is something that comes up and is something that's hard for him to be during that time. He also forgets that he is rich and that he's white and that he's a man, and he kind of forgets those privileges, which of course we get that opposition and that confrontation with him, with his sister and his mixed race friend. I really did enjoy this book. I thought it was really good, but I feel like it could have been better in terms of the plot, and I did feel like it was a bit too big and it could have been shorter because the plot felt like it dragged, and you could have made it stronger just by making it shorter. I do want to just address, because it was literally like a week after I finished this book, some stuff about the author Mackenzie Lee came up on Twitter, and I do want to address that. Long story short, there were some photos and some stuff of Mackenzie Lee basically signing other people's books and kind of just putting comments in them that weren't necessarily, oh yeah, I'm being a bitch, but were just a bit wrong, almost defacing someone else's book. It's kind of hard to explain off the top of my head, and as I haven't looked at it for a bit, but you might know of what's happened. If not, you can probably just like look it up on Twitter or something like that. I am aware, and I did, you know, see that all that happened, and I was thinking about lowering my rating, but I thought I'd just leave it, seeing that I'm probably not going to go ahead and read her other books or the rest of the series. But as obviously I've read this book like a few weeks ago, and it's kind of been just sitting around and I've had time to sit and think about it. I could lower my rating, but I don't think I will, because I still think it's fair of the time that I read it. But now it's not like I'm like, this is so great, I love this book. Like, it's just, yeah, it's alright. Basically what I'm trying to say is the controversy that happened did obviously lower my interest in reading the rest of the series, and I probably won't, is what I'm trying to say. But I will move on before I end up rambling and making no sense. So the next book that I read in the month of April was for the subject topology, and that was to read a book that started with an M, and for that I read Moxie by Jennifer Mathieu, and I'm so happy that I read this. I've been meaning to read it for a while. It's been on my shelf, I've owned it for a while, and I'm so grateful that I finally got round to it. I gave this a 4.5 out of 5 stars. It was just great. It was great. This book follows our main character Vivian, and she's from this like small town in Texas. She's just sick of all the misogyny and the sexism that the football players in her school kind of get away with. They're allowed and get away with, you know, making derogatory marks towards women and kind of just like saying comments in class about being like, oh, make me a sandwich, will you? And they can get away with almost basically sexually assaulting girls within their school, and she's just sick of it. So she just goes home and she just, out on a whim, just kind of out of kind of anger and frustration, makes these designs to then kind of hand out to the school anonymously to kind of start this movement, and it's just great. It was great. I loved it. Trigger warning for sexual assault, attempted rape, and just sexist language and discourse throughout. This book was just so great because even though a lot of it made me mad, and I was just sitting there being like, how the hell are any of these guys getting away with this? This is honestly like, if this was happening in my school or any like institution that I've been to, it just wouldn't happen. Like, I was just so baffled, and I think that kind of plays into the fact that she is from a small town in Texas. Obviously Texas is quite kind of a conservative, not very progressive state. Obviously there are probably parts of it that are, but probably from the place that she is, it's not really. It angered me so much, but I just loved, and that was kind of overcome by all the strong feminist works and movements and just power that was happening throughout, and it was just so great seeing all these girls come together. It was so great not seeing any girl on girl hate and seeing girls supporting each other. It was just brilliant, and I had so much fun. There is a romantic element in this because Vivian does start to like the new guy in school, and I really enjoyed that romance. At the beginning it was really great. I think throughout the middle and nearing the end it could have been a little bit better, and there were some things that did annoy me, but it obviously is done for like dramatic effect. But ultimately it was a really great romance, and just overall an amazing book. And so many times I was just sitting there being like, I'm so angry, but I'm so happy these girls are doing something about it, because I felt like I connected to the main character Vivian so much. There were so many times when stuff was happening to her or something happening to her friends that I just felt like it was happening to me. I felt like I was living it, and it was just so powerful and so great, and I enjoyed it a whole hell of a lot. So if you want a strong feminist, girl power, standing up against sexism sort of book, give this a shout. Amy Poehler has blurred it, and and I think, if I did say in my vlog, but I might not be 100% sure, but I think I did hear that she has bought the rights to make this into a film. So I really, really hope she does, because I think it'll be such a good film, and I just really, really want that. I need that in my life. The next book that I read in the month of April, I almost forgot the month, was for potions, and that was to read a book under 150 pages, and I read Binti by Nnedi Okorafor. This follows our main character Binti, and she's been accepted into this university in, it's kind of the sci-fi book, so it's kind of set in space, and she knows that going there is going to cause her some problems because she's the first of her people to be accepted into this university, and she knows that a lot of people aren't going to accept her people's customs and their ways, and she knows she's basically going to face some racism and some discrimination. What happens is, I think, if I can remember correctly, something happens on this ship and then aliens take it over. Basically, I gave this a 2.5 out of 5 stars, which is low-key generous. It's probably like between a 2 and a 2.5. I didn't really enjoy this. I think because it's a very short novella, which is like 90 pages, and it's meant to be this like high fantasy sci-fi world. It didn't give me enough time to get used to that and understand the world and to understand what was going on. So I just felt like I was reading it and just being like, I'm so confused, I don't care what is happening, sort of thing. That is why I didn't really like it, unfortunately. I know there are kind of quite mixed reviews, because when I first picked it up I thought there were a lot positive good reviews, like a majority positive good reviews, but as I was like reading it I was like, I'm going to check Goodreads to see what people were saying about it, and I think it was quite mixed. You have the people who really, really engage with it and really, really love it, but then people like me who is just like, nope, no. So unfortunately I didn't really like it. If you like high sci-fi fantasy sort of stuff, you think you could probably get used to that sort of world in a very short amount of time, I would definitely recommend it, because I have heard really good things from people who do get used to it and do like it. If sci-fi is not really your genre, then I don't think I'd recommend this. If it's not your genre because it's hard to kind of engage with the world, then it's going to be a lot more harder to engage with this world, I must say. Unfortunately, not the greatest. Probably will unhaul it, at least I gave it a try. And the final book that I read in the month of April was for Transfiguration, and that was to read a book or a series, or a book from a series that has shape-shifting in it. I was about to say Transfiguration, I meant shape-shifting. My mind is boggled at the moment. And for that I read A Heart So Fierce and Broken by Bridget Kemmerer. Obviously this is the second book in the A Curse So Dark and Lonely series. I think it's called the Curse Breakers series. I read that book at the end of last year, and I did buy this kind of on the day it came out because I was like looking forward to reading it, but I just never got around to reading it until now. Obviously I can't say much about this book, but the first book follows our main character Harper, who is from our world, and then she's having like troubles in her world because she's kind of just living and surviving with her brother, and one day she sees this man attacking this woman and goes to help her, and then this man ends up, instead of taking the other woman, takes her to this high fantasy place. I said fantasy twice in a row, okay. Once she's there, she finds out that she's been taken there to kind of fall in love with the prince, who's had a curse upon him to basically fall in love with somebody, or his town and his world, his kingdom, is just going to be like destroyed every year. It is a Beauty and the Beast retelling, so that kind of makes sense. I did enjoy the first book. The first book was like a 4 out of 5 stars for me. I was a little bit disappointed in it because I thought I was really going to like it, but I still did enjoy it. This one wasn't as good. It was like a 3.5, 3.25 out of 5 stars. The problem is, I know some people who probably really enjoyed the first book really enjoyed this one, but for me, because I was like, I enjoyed the first book but it wasn't like amazing, I think I just didn't care about the characters, so it was harder for me to engage with it. It's very character heavy because obviously this is a series and it's carrying on from the first book. We are in this book less following Harper and more following another character, Gray, the guy who took her to his world. We're more following him. So even though he was my favourite character in the first book, I felt like, because I was also introduced to more characters, I was almost hoping from this book to get more development from Harper, Gray and Ren, who's the prince, instead of being introduced to other characters, if you know what I mean. I still did enjoy it, and there were elements I really did enjoy. I think the new romance that blossoms in this book I did enjoy to an extent, but overall I just found myself not really caring. It just didn't feel like it was it. It felt like it could have been better. I could have got more from it. I could have enjoyed it more. I didn't hate it. That's the thing. I'm making me sound like I hated it. I enjoyed it-ish to an extent. Like it's between like, yeah, I liked it. Like I liked it and I enjoyed it, but like not crazy amounts, if you know what I mean. I don't know if I'm going to read the third book. If the third book is the final book, then I might be tempted because it's just one more book. If it kind of carries on, I think I'll be less motivated to. I think if you did really enjoy the first book, I definitely think that you'll like this one, especially if you really love the characters or you kind of like the world and stuff like that. If you were kind of like me and you enjoyed it but it wasn't the best, you might still like this, you might not, but I think if you didn't really like the first book, I don't know if you will like this one. I also do think it did suffer from second book syndrome. It was just really a book of character development, showing a couple characters that we knew from the first book and some new characters on a journey trying to get somewhere that's obviously going to build conflict for the next book. So the plot was a bit weak, and it, as I said, it did suffer from second book syndrome, but overall it was alright. Could have got more from it, could have enjoyed it just a little bit more. So that is it for my April wrap up, my OWLS wrap up. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comments below if you've read any of these books. I thought I'd, you know, start putting them up there because that's what people do. Right, so let me know in the comments if you've read any of these books and what your thoughts are on them. I had a really great reading month, even though I could have read more, and I know like 5 isn't a crazy amount for some people. For me, that is pretty average, it's pretty good. I think because March I dipped and I got into a bit of a reading slump at the end of March, I was a bit worried that I wouldn't get back into it for April for the OWLS, but I'm back on track of just reading and just having a good reading month. If you're new around here, do not forget to subscribe, turn my notification bell to know when I'm going to post, like the video, and as I said, comment about any of these books or what you read in the month of April. I was going to say May, and I was like, no, it's not May, it's March, and I was like, no, it's not March, it's April. All my social media links are in the description below. And with that all said and done, I will see you all in my next video.